were walking, Toby.
Oh, that was you? I didn't know who was who. The mom people were walking and stuff, so yeah.
This folder here is good.
They probably told you that.
Yeah, they keep saying.
Small world.
Say something, you spoke.
Good evening, the April 1st meeting of the Wasatch Grove Town Council, and it's not April Fool's Day. Welcome. Can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Browning,
Here.
Vice Mayor Carroll,
Here.
Councilman Goldenay, Councilman Liang, Councilman Rocket.
Yeah. If you would stand for the pledge, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, again, we ask for wisdom and guidance in our meeting tonight. We pray for the Smith family and the loss of Lucille. We pray for the Sheck family and the loss of Jan. For those that are suffering, those that serve our country overseas, we lift them up. We pray these things in your name. Amen. Amen. All right. Looking for the approval of the agenda.
I'd like to do an addition.
Okay. Ron,
Do an addition under 9C, and it would be mowing the ditch bank on 22nd Road North.
okay, everybody all right with that? Okay. Mark, you had one change.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to request that we take 9A under old business. Our engineers are here, rather than having them sit and reckon up the time, if we could do that and do it right between, I guess I should say right after public comments and before presentations, that'd be appreciated.
Okay. All right, everybody all right with that? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the modified agenda. Tom moves. Is there a second? Second by Ron. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Moving to the appointment of the mayor.
Make a motion that we appoint Dave Browning as mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
Need a second.
What's that? Yeah, it was second. By Tom.
You second, who was the first?
Ron.
My nomination.
Yes, okay. All, that we have a 4-0. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Entertain a motion for vice mayor.
I'd like to nominate Ron Darrell as mayor.
We have a nomination for Ron, second by Tom. Any other nominations? We have a nomination. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 4-0. What's that? Hey, Ron, Ryan, how can you be late because he's mayor? That was great. It's open. All right. Moving to the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull out? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I have one question, Mr. Mayor. This was kind of addressed to, was the search team aware of Mark?
Mark?
What was the search team alerted to the interoperable radio communications agreement? Given any kind of update as to what it is we're doing? It didn't seem like it was really much of it.
No, I did not,
So are they not the ones that really are?
no, this is, no, this is a little bit different. It's not totally emergency management, it's all part of the police agencies throughout the county.
I didn't know somebody that was breaking that user.
Okay.
I can always let you know.
Okay. Okay, Tom has already made a motion. I'll say, I think Tom made a motion. Ron seconds it. Further discussion on consent agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We have some public comments. The first one, I'd like to welcome a candidate for the county commission, Melissa McKinley.
Good evening, thank you. I just don't speak very loudly. Good evening, Melissa McKinley. I'm a candidate for District 6 for the County Commission, and thank you for having me out here this evening. I do hope that I have the good fortune of serving on the County Commission under Mayor and Vice Mayor James Smith. And congratulations to both of you. It speaks volumes that you probably did a good enough job of serving in your current role, so congratulations to you. I don't want to get too political, this is the council meeting, but I just did want to take the time to come out here and tell you who I am, and to let you know that somehow, some way, I will be knocking on your doors and with the golf cart door to door. And I look forward to someday working with all of you side by side and making things so much better. So if I can answer any questions anytime, feel free to call me, email me, text me, however you'd like to communicate. I have an open door and sitting on table. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. David Stout.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Would you mind if I handed a little hand up to you real quick?
Sure.
You'll-
Motion received and filed. Rob, that's the annual handout.
Yeah.
Okay, so second? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Passes. Receive and file.
Say, my name is David Self. I've been a resident of Waxahachie since 1981. I have a nursery in Waxahachie that I've operated since then. We have some concern on 161st Terrace North. There's a property, vacant property called the Rayside, and it's, I know you guys are familiar with it, so I don't have to go in detail, but it's gotten worse since they opened up a cut through from 160th over to 161st. So we have twice as many trucks, motorbikes, and parties going on at the property. It's very hard to conduct business between my two nurseries with golf carts that I haul material back and forth. It's very dangerous, it's a safety issue. I've almost been run over, my dogs did, my employees, so my concern is that something needs to be done, and I'd be more than happy to meet with any of you gentlemen and we kind of look over the situation and maybe come up with something. I know it's kind of a thorn in the side here. It's been ongoing for quite a few years. There is some solutions that I thought of that I'd be glad to present to you for the time. Please consider a remedy to this situation. I certainly appreciate it. There's been, besides the noise, safety, and we've had some theft. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Question?
David, thank you very much. Ron?
I'd like to make a comment about the situation, especially since I live on 161st, and that I've mentioned this year after year. The problem is getting worse. PBSO is pretty good about working with us, but we as a town, I don't think we've gotten hard enough on this. The worst scenario is in the morning when the kids are going, cutting through Waxahachie to go to Seminole Ridge High School, and the workers are coming in to go to work. They use that for a cut through. They pass each other, run 50 and 60 miles an hour and pick up trucks. And then in the afternoon between 2 and 4 o'clock, they're coming home from school doing the same thing. It's a dust problem, but it's a dangerous problem for the kids. Sooner or later, they're going to. We had probably a little over a month ago, we had a major accident on the road where the young man was coming home drunk, ran through a fence, took the fence out, and luckily he walked away from it, he ran away from it before the police could get there. I've expressed before that, and I asked Mark at the last council meeting about getting with PBSO and doing some speed traps on B Road. I believe we've got a major problem on B Road, and also concerns about our road, so I'll let him do a follow-up on that if we did anything about it. But we do need to stop that. It's dangerous for the kids that are abusing the road. It's bad for the residents, and the worst scenario is anywhere between 11 and 2 in the morning when they decide to party on this vacant lot. They're underage, they're drinking, they're on four-wheelers, they're on pickup trucks, they're tearing the property up, they're keeping the neighbors awake, and so we as a town, maybe one of these days we'll figure out a way to solve this problem, but we do need to get PBSO involved, and they do have a unit that works off 4x4s and four-wheel drive pickup trucks. In the past, before Lieutenant Combs came on board, I talked to PBSO officers, and basically in a squad car, you can't do anything, and they know it. They shoot down the road, you chase them, and you're not allowed to chase them anymore, but then they cut through the woods, and PBSO is left there on the pavement. So I would hope that we can direct management to work with Lieutenant Combs and see if they can come up with a game plan and work with you, David, as far as the time, because we do need the problem times. That's when we need to be out there trying to do something about it. Okay?
Well, thank you for hearing me.
Okay, thank you, David. Mark, I think if we could look into that and see what we can do and get a report on that. All right, Marge Herzog.
Marge Herzog, A Road. I just wanted you to be aware that on April 12th, we'll have our Adopt a Road, and we're going to have about 60 kids. Our intention is to try to tackle some of these things that have been complained about by Ken Johnson. We're going to attempt to clean from Collecting Canal all the way up to North Road, and also do Okeechobee. So with 60 kids or more, we should be able to accomplish quite a bit, I'm hoping. The other thing was, the other night at the Lot City Groves landowners meeting, Frank Shiola was there, and he mentioned that he had to leave because of surveillance with manure in the evening. And I'm wondering about the insurance coverage that he has to protect him in the event that an unruly manure hauler confronts him in any way that could be threatening to him.
I think he's required to have his own insurance.
Okay,
He's not employed of the county.
okay, thank you.
Hey, Marge, before you leave, question for you.
Yes,
These 60 kids, keep them in refreshments and waters and food and stuff like that while they're working for the town of Los
We do.
Angeles? Okay, how do you pay for it?
out of the Lot City landowners fund.
Okay, well, I personally would like to see the town pay for something like that. These high school kids do an outstanding job. They've always been doing it along Okeechobee Boulevard, and sometimes they do it in the rain, but no matter what, it's hot weather, they do an excellent job. I would like to see the town kind of work with the landowners association. Now, if they don't want us to pay for it, that's a different story, but if we could help them out, I would hope that it would be possible to do that.
If you wanted to buy water, that would be fine. That's about all that the kids really want. I mean, we've tried having donuts in the morning for them, and they just want to get to work. Right?
Right, I know in the past I've helped out too. They probably appreciate 3 or 4 people that have pickup trucks that can go, especially toward the end, and gather the bags. The kids do a great job putting them along Okeechobee and along the other roads. So if somebody can go in there, coordinate it with Marge, I'm sure she would appreciate that a lot.
Yes, and, any help that the adults can give us this time would be appreciated. My grandson's getting married that day, and I need to be at his wedding too, so
There you
one of
go.
the big strong links is going to be missing.
There you go. Thank you, Marge. Phyllis. Come on up.
Phyllis Vanilla, 359 West D Road. My issue is with code enforcement. I did not go over it at the last meeting, but a lot of you are aware that on September 20th, I wrote a letter to the editor of the Town Crier. It was about the meeting on September 9th from the Water District. I was very unhappy, okay? That was published on the 20th of September. On the 27th of September, Mr. Shiola code enforced me for an unsafe house on my property, from which I have been told he received $150 for. Okay, my problem with code enforcement is when they go out and code enforce somebody, there should be 3 copies. One should go to the person that's being violated, one should go to Mark at the office, and one should stay with the code enforcement officer. It took 6 months. I got violated on September 2013, and I only found that by accident in the beginning of March. Only because I was looking up somebody else's stuff. So there's a problem here. I am very upset that I'm a resident and being code enforced by a board member, okay, who couldn't even gain access to my property. There is no unsafe house on my property. That was definitely vindictive, and I have been told that he has been paid for this. I don't think it's right. I believe it's a conflict of interest. I don't understand who gave this guy carte blanche to go out and spy on his neighbors and turn us in. And if we are being turned in for something, we should know about it immediately so we could say, hey, this isn't right. He should not be paid until it's proven that there is a code enforcement violation. Okay, now, Mr. Cutney told me at the last meeting that the code enforcement officer would be in touch with me. The very next day, I sent him a text asking him to please contact me in writing or by email. I have yet to hear word one from him. Thank you. And I do have a copy of my article and the code enforcement complaint. If you guys are interested, do you want to see that?
Okay. And Mark, later on, if you could give us what's going on here, because it definitely doesn't sound right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you.
Bill Lauda. Motion to receive.
Forward, second.
Motion to receive. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Who's on 4?
Huh? Yours is on what, 4? Oh, okay, sorry about that. Why don't you get on a roll?
You want me to
Dan, on
talk?
this one, I will. Okay. Dan, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Ken Johnson, Collecting Canal. A couple of things, and this may be a little lengthy, but it's a major challenge that we as a town have in the next 2 years. And it's due to the restrictions that South Florida Water Management is going to put on our town. About wastewater or canal water being pumped into the C-51. If we don't meet their standards, as I understand it, we're going to have to purchase land, dig retention ponds, purify our water up to their standards before it can be put into the C-51 if we have, we need to do that. I know that the town already is working on stopping the manure being hauled from across the road into our town, which is excellent. Also understand that you've got an ordinance tonight to do with what's happening to manure being produced in our town, and how we're going to regulate it, how we're going to ship it out, and whatever we're going to do with it. You're dealing with that. My concern is how we're going to eliminate the contamination of our water that affects our environment. What about the problems that are already existing? monitor who's creating those problems. We've got to have some other mechanism to clean up the problems we've already got. And that, I think, is a big challenge. And I think it's going to need a lot of thought going into it, but we've only got 2 years to work on that problem. And government, unfortunately, takes time to develop plans to get something done. The fourth thing, I ran into a very interesting problem the last couple of days. And this is a suggestion to amend a regulation that is currently enforced. Rather being passive on code enforcement, I think we have to be proactive on some issues of code enforcement where there are existing regulations that govern that activity. I'll cite an example. Currently, going back to the water situation, there's a pond that's being filled up. We don't know where the debris is coming from that's going into the pond. We don't know what that debris contains. But I, as a citizen, brought that up. We need to look at that. Then I was told, and rightfully so, because they are following their directive. Well, code enforcement has to be passive rather than proactive. But on the books already, there are permits that have to be gained when you do something with the pond, whether you're digging it, whether you're filling it in, whether you're putting up a fence, whether you're doing whatever. You're supposed to have a permit. Well, there's a conflict of interest there, in my opinion. That's one of them. The other one is, that's on the books, and I've brought this up before too, is the requirement of businesses to have dumpsters. That's fallen through the cracks. You know, there's plenty of reasons why they should have dumpsters. And I just think that you need to take a look at how we're going to manage our problems coming up in the future. Thank you.
Hey, Ken, before you leave, first of all, the pond situation, I personally don't consider that as being passive as far as code enforcement. I've always stressed anything that has to do with health, safety, and hazards, that we don't play games with that. Now, when you dump something in the pond and we don't know what it is, that's not something to be passive on. So if you call that in, I expect code enforcement to find out what was dumped in the pond. And unless I'm off base here, and hopefully the council will correct me, but if you call that in and things didn't work, I suggest you call it in tomorrow and see if there's a change of game plan. If the council is in consensus with it, because that's not something that we just overlook. The other situation was the last thing we were talking about.
Dumpsters.
Okay. Over a year ago, we talked about dumpsters, and we talked two things about dumpsters. First of all, it's a way for the town to bring in revenue.
That's correct.
Now, we're supposed to have somebody working on that, so if they drop the ball, or if we've forgotten about it, or maybe Mark can help me out here. Mark?
Well, I was going to just comment on the first matter that the Vice Mayor commented on. And that is, I think we reacted to the situation that Ken is raising in a proper manner. When he called us and reported the details, I did go ahead and we had a couple different things. We did research the code to make sure that we had regulations that covered the issue of the pond, which we had, but wanted to verify that. I directed Mr. Elgin to go out and take a look at the site. to see just what was going on and gather any evidence. But at that point, I said, that's all you're to do until we see what you can find and come back. He did come back and indicate that activity was going on. Staff did call Ken and let him know that, okay, this is what we can do at this point, but my hands are still tied because I need a written complaint. So, and that's the way I'm gonna proceed unless this council tells me they want me to move forward without a written complaint. I mean, I have to have a consistent procedure. I'm trying to follow the procedures we've laid out. We try to do as much as we can up to the point where, then we need something in writing unless you tell me to move out and apply.
May I say something? That's correct, what you've stated, 100%. But at the same time, what I'm saying is that it seems to me we've got a conflict of interest. In other words, we've got ordinances on the book that say one thing, but we've got a regulation in place that ties his hands and his staff's hands from enforcing it. Now, something's got to give.
Tom?
Dredging and filling the wetlands is an issue for the South Florida Water Management District, and that's what should be addressed. We don't have to create our own internal way to deal with this. People have gotten in trouble in Los Angeles for filling in ditches, so I think if somebody's filling in a pond without a permit, that would be something that the appropriate folks ought to deal with, rather than us.
Yeah.
So,
And that's something
that's what, yeah.
we need to look into. I know there's a difference between filling a wetland and filling a pond. If someone has dug a pond to build their house up, as long as it's clean material going back in it, I wish you'd stopped in just to ask the owner, what are you putting in the pond? Because there are regulations what you can put in.
Well, I can guarantee you this is not clean material, it's demolition concrete.
Well, but that, believe it or not, again, that's clean fill.
That's clean for.
It could be block, rebar, sidewalks, dirt.
How about if it contains asbestos?
What's that?
How about if it
Can't be asbestos, can't be organic material.
We don't
Can't
know.
be trees. Well, no, I understand that, But,
Just one question from Mark. Mark, did we find out what was being dumped in the pond?
Not yet, we didn't go any further because we didn't let Ken know we needed his written, request, until the person can move forward.
Okay, so basically that's what they're waiting on, Ken. In other words, that's the holdup,
Okay.
is a written complaint.
That's what I'm saying. I don't mind doing it. But the thing is, why should I or any other citizen be put in that situation? We've got ordinances on the book that say we've got to have a permit. Or South Florida Water Management needs to be involved. That should take me out of the picture. That's what
thank you. Thank you, Ken. All right, we are going to move to item 9A right now. Apologize to Shelley, but
Okay.
waiting a minute.
Thank you, Your Honor. As your agenda states, 9A deals with procurement of construction services for Compton Road, Ryan Road, and Marcelo Boulevard roadways. I did send town council a couple of emails in which, number one, I indicated construction plans for all three roadways were available in 11 by 17 format, and I would also have an extra place tonight, which we do have. Also, two reports are extra places. I sent you an email on that. I also actually sent that to you by email and asked you if you had a chance to review it. It's basically from Radis, which is the company that Pressure Bars and Associates use to do the borings, the cores, and the geotechnical work that goes hand in hand with the engineering reconnaissance that they do in the project like this. Two-part agenda item. Number one, what we would like to do is have you hear an update on the three sets of plans by Manager Fisher-Barris and his staff, Fisher-Barris and his staff. And then after you've heard those comments and the pertinent information discussion, how we finally finish going about this, whether it's through the piggyback vehicle or some other plan of action that you may direct us to move forward on. So Mayor, with your approval, I'm going to ask Manager to go to the podium and do his presentation.
Associates.
If you would speak up, I don't know whether the crowd's having a hard time hearing. Is the microphone on?
Yes, sir. It's not loud enough.
Doesn't seem like that's loud enough. I never had that problem, I've never.
Reduce the volume.
Well,
The
then-
volume on that.
What's that?
The volume on that thing up there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're. There we
There we
go. Oh, that's good.
That's it.
Too.
Thank you.
Okay. For the record, my name is Maziar Kishavaz. I represent the firm of Kishavaz and Associates, the town's consulting engineer. You commissioned us and instructed us to prepare engineering sets of documents, details and specifications for 3 of your roads. We've done so. We are at a point of completed plans where the next move, pending your approval, would be to procure services of a contractor. That is entirely up to you and your staff how you wish to go about that. But the plans that we do have are prepared such that they could be put out to the open market for bid, or it could be used for whatever purposes you wish to use them for. Piggyback if your attorney agrees to it. But my job is to prepare those plans and advise you how to construct these, and that we have done. We are here tonight and are prepared to go through these plans at any level of detail you wish us to do so. I warn you that you may fall asleep if you wish to get too detailed.
I think we're looking for a summary, honestly.
Yes, sir. In as much as I don't know how to give summaries, I've asked Randy to come here and give you the summary on this. Randy was in charge of the design of these plans, and he's here to talk with you. Randy, what's happening?
Good evening, Randy Wertappi with Keshavars. As Muzzy said, I'm going to be giving you a brief summary of each of the roads. I'd like to break them up into 3 roadways that we have, starting with Compton Road. That's been, we focused our attention in first. Compton Road has 3 major elements of design. We have our drainage components that we're adding. There is some clearing and grading off-site off of the road in order to get rid of some of those high areas north and south of the road. And then there is the resurfacing itself. Bryan Road had 2 components. Bryan Road was a mono-pitched road for the most part, and it had swale in the majority of the areas both on the north and the south side of the road. Therefore, we did not install any, or we did not propose any drainage improvements in the form of pipe work, just regrading some of the swales in addition to the microsurfacing. The one part that I did forget to mention, there is elements of the design to remove sections of roadway to replace where they're in disrepair. Or on Compton Road in Marcella, where the islands were in the middle of the road, we are removing those islands and the trees that are in the middle of the road. So those would have more of a uniform section. And then Marsala is similar to Compton Road. The roadway was in much better condition. However, it was mono-pitched towards the south with a drainage ditch on the north, so drainage culverts were added to get the drainage to the ditch. And that's really a summary of the 3 roadways. Any questions at all, or would you like me to go into further details?
I don't know how much detail. I thought you would give us just a kind of a summary of what your thought was on what we're doing. I mean, I'm not looking to sit here for an hour and listen to.
Yeah. Could I ask a question?
Uh,
Relative to Compton,
Yes.
I noticed somewhere in here you were talking about two options. One was dealing with 3 low spots, and the other was what, to cut the entire road, redo it, and put it back?
Yes, sir. You must be referring to the Radish report,
Yeah.
the geotechnical that we hired to basically evaluate it from a geotechnical standpoint. Yes, I do recall that. I read that.
Is that what you all proposed?
No, sir. I'll let Randy tell you the details about that.
Thank you, Tom. We are proposing to do adding a layer of microsurfacing for the most part. So it is very similar to what North Florida Emulsions was proposing of resurfacing the road. It extends the life of the road. Our geotech gave us 2 options. Their report states that there is a finite time where these roads are going to be non-usable. Today is not that day, and with the minor repairs that we have on the plans, certain sections go in, remove the pavement, address those specific areas, resurface the entire thing, we are going to get more use out of these roads.
All right. Okay.
Can I ask you a question just to clarify? So the scope for each road is slightly different than the others. It's not one uniform design for these roads, so it's 3 different road projects.
The only difference between the 2 roads as far as a bidding difference or a difference in actual work is small drainage culverts to cross. So they could all be bid in the same.
Or they could be done separately.
Yes, they could be individual or separately,
Depending on
however.
how they wanted to deal with the chronology or the work or.
That is correct.
All right, Tom?
And didn't you say that on Compton you also had some clearing and other work involved?
Yes, every roadway will have some clearing work to some extent. So whether it's very minor or a little bit more, I think Compton and Marcelo, because of those island areas, are a little bit more. Compton and Marcel as well, we're proposing to clear the ditch, get the debris out of that ditch area, so that's.
Completely removing the debris and all the ditches?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That would be invasive species, Brazilian pepper mostly. Any pine trees in there would remain, so it's not a completely just take a chainsaw and cut everything away. Would do normally do it there.
Water would flow much easier in it once we're done.
Did you all notice that there was any culverts that would block along the north side of Compton, or wasn't that within what you were doing?
Some of the culverts were blocked and inaccessible. There are notes on plans, the contractor to verify those culverts.
Okay. So as a council, where are we going next, Ron?
First of all, you did an outstanding job with the plans. Now, I gotta be honest with you, surprised, I figured it'd be outrageous, but basically, you kept it to the minimum requirements, but to improve the road and take care of the drainage problem. So, like I said, I want to compliment on that. Now, a statement on these plans, it says, K&A make no warranties stated or implied as to the proposed measures of conformance or compliance with any local, state, or federal regulations with respect to safety, layout, geometry of the road. Does that mean basically you guys would not be liable as far as the construction work after it was completed? Or just explain that to me.
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked the question. That statement basically is put there to explain to the reader, to the user of these plans, that these roads are not like new roads. Based on your directive, this is a maintenance program. This is a restoration project. It is not a new road. That is strictly the reason for that note.
Excellent.
No, and that helps me. And now, the only complaint I have is, I've got 2 letters here. I've got basically the core test and the summary of the pavement cores and stuff. And in a letter here, it states that on Compton Road, the nominal maximum aggregate size observed along the surface was approximately 1.5 to 2 inches. Now, is that in depth, or is that the size of the rock? Or?
Size of the rock.
Okay, all right, now that helps me out, because on the core test, it was like anywhere from 5.5 to 6 inches, so I was relating that to the depth and not the size of the rock.
Okay.
The other thing, in the design, I believe on Compton, I knew Compton was the worst road.
It was.
And I noticed you have 10 drainage sites on the south side. Now, I spoke with a guy that does this for a living, and he said this was outstanding. And I've tried to get the water control district to do this years ago, and it was told that we couldn't do it. Now, we are implying now with basins and culverts going into the canal, but I like this plan now. Could we, I notice you've got 10 along that road, could we reduce it down to 5? Basically, that would be our call, wouldn't it? I'm asking.
Randy wants to answer that question.
It is your call, and we can reduce that. The reason why you see 10 of those, we felt the minimum should be 8. We had 10 because there was a couple low spots, so we had to do 2 more than we wanted to. We wanted one basin in between each resident, because on the south side of the road, we didn't think the town wanted to put culverts in there to connect all the drainage to hit the low points. So every resident on the south side of the road will be responsible to getting their own discharge into that basin. So you could relay that responsibility onto the homeowners, and you don't have to go, they don't have to go through Tom's yard to get to Joe's yard to get to the basin. So they have a basin adjacent to every one. There was sort of a purpose for that. We briefly explained that thought process with Mark. We'll be happy to change it if the council wishes to do so.
No, I'm going to compliment you on that also. Now, I look at Compton Road as a template for what we may be doing in the future in Loxahatchee Groves. Now, everybody in this room knows that we got a major problem with drainage. Okay, now to put that in front of the residents where they basically have to get their water to that, but it allows them drainage, and then the cost with an 8-inch pipe instead of 18 or a 12-inch culvert, the cost is reduced greatly. So here we are solving a drainage problem that we could possibly have on Compton Road. We're doing it economically, and we're setting a template so that maybe this might work for the rest of Loxahatchee. And then you explain that this is a restoration of a road. Because if we had to build new roads in Loxahatchee, I know that you would recommend that we go by standards, and that would cost us a fortune. So hopefully in the future, if more roads are involved, it'll be under restoration or maintenance upkeep. Basically, I'm looking at the core test and stuff now. I was impressed. I thought the core test was great as far as the asphalt thickness and the base thickness. I was actually estimating it might have been falling under that, but to me that was a pretty decent reading. So no, I thank you for what you did. If you could have done it for free, that would have been even better. Job well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mark, what is our next step? Are we going to, somebody on, you guys are going to compile this and figure out what we need to do with it?
Well, the one issue that came up that I've identified in the report that Mike and I are going to weigh in on, as you know, council had considered doing this as a piggyback procurement. The issue is, and you see it's on the last page on the agenda report, Mike and Maziar and I talked, and we felt it was important for Maziar's group to take a look at the Volusia contract to see if, based upon the plans they developed, was this in fact, would this comport with the piggyback? And you see there on the email from Alan Green, he advised that actually the work scope entails about 5 or 6 additional elements than what the Volusia piggyback contract would address, which does become somewhat problematic. So the B of this agenda item tonight, what we wanted to talk about is take a look at this item, see what they've put into the plans, which they've kind of given you an idea of, and how do we procure it. It would appear on the surface that piggyback wouldn't work because of the additional scope of the work. So it could be an invitation to bid. You could scale it back and try to do piggyback. They have cost estimates for you if you want to hear those tonight. I mean, that's also part of it. But I guess at this point, the rest of the discussion on the agenda item will probably detail how we can properly procure the work.
Okay.
And I just want to say, in review of this too, if they're separate projects, then we would follow our procurement code on how to deal with that. The issue with the piggybacking is that in order to piggyback, you've got to have a line item for all the services. So if you were going to piggyback for a portion of this, you would have to only piggyback on those items. If we still have to go through our own code to find other vendors to do the other work that's not covered by the piggyback, whether it's another piggyback, or whether it's a bid waiver, or whether that's procured, or whether it falls under the requirements. But I would suspect that, given the detail on these plans, that you would need to go through for some work on this, some procurement or bid waiver. If you were to do it as one project, soup to nuts with one vendor, you would have to procure that because the Volusia County contract doesn't include all the services that are required by these plans.
All right, this is going to be a lengthier process, I think, than we want to do tonight, correct? Would that be right?
No.
I mean, I'm thinking if we dedicate the second meeting this month to this, I mean, if we're going through and talking about different,
Part of a road conversation anyway?
what's that?
Aren't we supposed to be talking about the roads at the?
Yeah, I think this, our second meeting was about roads anyway, right?
That's one, that's an agenda item you directly put on, yes. And I would just add one thing that I feel to indicate concern about that. But, as I say, you may want Maziar to quickly go through the costs, but the costs of this are, as you would guess, more expensive than the unsolicited estimates that we received from North Florida Emulsion at the time.
Right.
And the one thing, now we covered the procurement aspect of it, but also one thing I want to express is that from the funding this project would be more money than what we budgeted for in the CIP project for those three roads: county, construction, engineering, inspection, etc. So obviously, if you decide to go this way, we are going to have to recommend and let you know that we probably need to do a budget amendment, probably coming from the most likely source would be one of the other CIP projects, allocating some money from there to this project to make it go. I just wanted, that's an additional component. We didn't really address it, I just wanted you to be aware of it.
Okay, Ron?
As the cost estimate for the roads is just give me a round figure.
Do you want them individually or do you want all
Yeah,
one?
you need an individual.
You might not want that from the standpoint of if we are going to bid, you probably don't want to tell people what we think.
No, first, I want it, I'm asking for it.
Well, okay.
I don't think we're gonna bid, but I'd like to hear that just for the public, okay? No, I haven't said what I gotta say. When I
Okay.
get through talking, I don't think we're gonna bid. Go ahead, man, what's the rough cost?
Begin with Marcella, the price that we have estimated for complete construction, including drainage, mobilization, maintenance of traffic, NPDES compliance, survey layout, record drawings, clearing and grubbing the ditch, the whole 9 yards, is $89,891. Bryan Road, again, for the same complete redo, is almost 63,000. And Compton Road, again, for the same complete scope, including drainage, is 101,000. One. And change, there on that.
And our proposal for the three roads from our original ad hoc,
We roughly budgeted 80,000 for the
we
construction.
got information to do the road work, and we have,
It was 100,000, 80 for construction, 20,000 for engineering.
For all three roads.
Yes.
Go ahead. You want me to go?
no. I'm long-winded too, so.
Tom, did you want to know what North Florida Emulsion submitted? I'm sorry if I misunderstood the question. Did
The
you?
North Florida Emulsion number, you're saying
Oh, I'm
is
sorry.
80,000?
That, well, again, that was an unsolicited quote. Each of them came in roughly a tad under 25. I think one was like 24.9, one was 24.8.
So 80,000.
Yeah, they came in around 70, under 75, a little bit under 75.
So we got, if I may, we got one road, we got three roads for the price of the one road that we've got proposed in front of us. All right. Here's my,
But apples to oranges.
absolutely, and that's probably my point. We started this discussion many months ago. We had a meeting at one point where we directed us, the staff, to move this project forward with what we had, the unsolicited, as you call it, estimates. That didn't happen for whatever reason, and we started going down the path of involving road builders, our engineering firm, to give us, what I look at is, it's no longer, it's moved from maintenance to, basically a new road in my mind. Now, it may not be defined that way, but what we were doing, I thought, was staying within the realm of maintenance. Based on the reports that I see, compared to what we were going to initially do, it seemed like what we had proposed to do in terms of maintaining these roads, resurfacing them, was better than the original, from what I could gather from the reports. So I didn't expect these things to last, when we did the maintenance of them, for 20 years. The first ones didn't last 20 years, but they lasted a while. We, if you go back to when they actually were deteriorating, it's probably anywhere from 5 to 8 years, somewhere in that time frame, I'll guess. And then when it really got bad, of course, after the town became a town, not a direct relationship of the two. So I'm concerned that we have come away from what we were trying to do as a maintenance project, and we're delving into basically a new road concept. In my mind, that's my opinion of what my take is on all the work we're doing to redo these roads. And when we get into something like that, we're then venturing into how do we fund new roads. Again, that's my opinion, and that's a whole different subject. So then you put them on the list of all the roads that need to be done in this community and how we fund them. And that, maybe, Ron's comment about we won't be bidding on these things, that may be, I might echo that for a different reason than whatever he had. I think it was clear that we should move forward and just have them resurfaced. To me, it's clear that the piggyback contract, proposed piggyback contract, can do the resurfacing as we had identified. It can still do what seems to be option one, which is take and resurface, place an additional emulsified stabilizing surface over the present roadway material. That's what I look at, what this option one came from. Radas, were these? That was their assessment, and then there's option two. To me, we've got that as an option, which is we go resurface them the way we originally had proposed several months ago. We can also do separate drainage work, because I think we have a separate contractor that we would look to do drainage work. We might have a local agreement that we get some of the clearance of the drainage areas is also, I think, something we can look at with an interlocal agreement. Separate projects, we don't have to have one done, all of them done together. So I'm concerned that we may have overcomplicated what we can do, and now we have some additional information that seems like it's feasible to do, is resurface with a stabilizing surface. And other things that have been identified as weaknesses, we can address those separately. I don't know, and this is part of the question of the contract that was given to us to piggyback on. If, for example, that includes excavating some areas, I thought it did, and refilling them and giving us the basis to resurface. That was not just roll over an old road, and if you've got dips in it, you're going to have new dips, you're going to have the same dips, it's just going to be covered. So I thought there was some buildup of areas that needed to be refilled, and then it was re-emulsified. So if that's what that contract that we had that was a possible piggyback contract said, then right now I'm ready to make a motion that we move ahead with that piggyback contract for those three roads with the resurfacing done, the way we had outlined originally, and any additional work we take on separately and we send out as other bidding proposals, or we return to contracts that we already have with vendors. That's my motion.
Okay. Tom?
For the purpose of further conversation, I second it. Having gone to the IGC meeting this past week, there was a cost estimate there for people. And it's a very significant amount, and just starting out without anybody saying, no, what about this and no, what about that, close to $1 million. And when you consider the distance that we're talking about, and the fact that these roads are probably all close to a mile long, they don't really seem on a per mile basis to be that out of line. As I said, apples to oranges, it is. You have one that's a resurfacing project, because you're basically saying, we're gonna paint the house. And another one that's saying, well, before we paint the house, maybe we ought to fix the boards. And while we're doing that, we need to do some landscaping, we need to move the tree away, we need to put it back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So one is one thing, and one's a totally different thing. If we're really just going to resurface it, fine. But when the people from Coffee come and say the place is flooded, well, you have no job. It will be flooded. It will continue to be flooded. And their new road will be flooded. And we'll be getting told what fools we are, because we didn't build the drainage problem that we were told. The really original reason they came here, what about the road? It was about Isaac. That's what they were here about, and they were complaining it wasn't draining, and it was causing this, it was causing that, it was causing the ending problem. So we're not doing that tonight. Just remember I said so, and just remember they said so. So let's not deal with it. Let's just do what you want to do with the resurfacing, but there's problems. So, leave the problems there. Okay. But you don't need to spend hours, because it's really not having, I made my objections, I object to the idea. Obviously, we found, Mike is aware that there's perhaps additional items of scope that would say that this should be picked up, but, do what y'all want. I don't think we should. I think we should do it right. I think we should look at it. I think Jim is right. These roads are not cheap. That's what the PAC committee was trying to point out the other day. The idea that everybody's going to get a road that's all you get paid for by the town, I hope you got a long time to live, because it's going to take us a long time to get there if we're going to be getting enough taxes of the people that are around here. So, we need to be realistic. That's what Ken came here to start talking about tonight. There's a lot of issues. How are we going to do that? How are we going to worry about the water? How are we going to worry about any of this when we can't, if you only want to pay $25,000 a mile for a road, you need to do it. If you want to pave a road, you need to pay for a pavement. You need to build the right thing. You need to build what they built on A Road. You need to build what they built on B Road. And we need to learn, as we're doing it, to do a couple more things like the proper catch basins and maybe some way to deal with the sloughing off on the non-canal side. But those are little things that we can work with and our engineers can come up with designs and solutions for. But you can't pretend. And you can't do everything on the cheap, or that's what we will get, and that's the results, and you'll see what you get. It'll break down, it'll fall down. Karen?
A couple points. Tom's correct that the shorter road section, they're 7/10 of a mile, which is almost 1/10 mile, so it's not as arguably the same. But we are already in the process of putting in a culvert, which is a major fix to the Compton Road drainage.
Correct.
The side culverts certainly contribute, but that was the wildcat, if you will. And so that's already been done, already moving ahead on that. I understand, right?
Done, culvert's done.
Okay, so the drainage issue, I think, could very well be much improved, and we don't really face the same kind of a situation with a 100-year storm, which hopefully we won't have a 100-year storm in the next few years. But my basic premise is we've got a resurfacing project that we started down the path to do. It's taken us 3 months just to get to the point where we're saying the same thing you said 3 months ago, which was, go ahead and sign a contract for piggybacking and let's resurface. And let's address any other drainage issues, which we already did for Compton. And I don't see why we have to take out the islands on Compton and Marcella unless there's a real good reason for that, but if there is, but that's, you know, like what we got. I think we're asking for something better than what we were originally given. And it's a maintenance perspective. It's not a road that I'm putting in to try to compete with the letter 3, 4 letter roads that are supposed to last 10 years without being resurfaced. So I have a motion. I know we have a second. Tom is on vote for it. But I thank you, Tom, for seconding it for discussion.
Anything will move it along.
All right, Ron.
Mass, thank you for the quote. That helps me out in the argument. And really, that's a realistic quote from y'all's viewpoint.
It's an estimate, sir, if I may.
Right, no.
Stress that, that's an engineer's opinion of cost. You know, we look for words to make it not so
Right.
serious at this stage, because it's not been bid, we're just estimating.
No, but I bet if.
It won't be half of that.
Hey, well, now, I would make you right there now, but hey, but we agreed as a council, unless my memory fails me, we agreed that legally we could piggyback Volusia County, okay? Because first of all, if we piggyback Volusia, it's cheaper than the quote that he quoted the town to do it to begin with. All right, so we're saving money by piggybacking. All right, all of a sudden, last minute, we come up and say, well, we can't piggyback or we shouldn't piggyback because it don't have a subgrade prep, base rock installation, drainage installation, grading improvement, vegetation clearing. Okay, we keep, for some reason, we keep dragging our feet on this project. Okay, we give the water control, there's only one thing on this list that we could bid out and have it done professionally, but we do not have to. I could have had everybody on Compton Road here tonight, but it's not necessary. They told this council that they didn't come here because it was flooding. They came here because their culvert at that road in Compton would not drain. That culvert was replaced. It was done by the water control district, and instead of costing us $5,000 to $7,000, it cost us $2,500 because they work for $50 an hour, and we have a road maintenance contract with the water control district. Now, we don't have a contract for hedging with anybody because the contractor we had, we shut them down back in August, and for some reason we're having a hard time going out for another RFP, so the hedging has gotten worse. And, okay, but no, as far as the hedging goes, the water control district can do the hedging. They can do it for $50 an hour, or on their meeting on the 14th, if we got to postpone it another 2 weeks, I can present it to their board, and they can do it for free like they did 6 Court North when they went from D Road to Folsom and hedged it when the town management wanted to pay $1,000 to do it. So now the hedging can be taken care of with the tax-paying dollars that you already pay the water control district, all right? They just purchased a machine probably for over $100,000, a brand new hedging machine, bigger and better than the one they had. Our tax dollars are paying for that machine. They are in the town of Waxahachie Groves. They can hedge that road, and they can either do it for free, or if we don't want to be so cheap about it, we can pay them $50 an hour. Now, we had a John Choquette CNC loader business has a new machine that we will probably be using. It can take a cabbage palm 2 foot wide and bring it down to the ground. You don't have to pull it out of the ground and replace the soil and grade and all that stuff. It can take anything and bring it straight down to the ground. You can leave the mulch on the bank to keep the weeds from growing. The handicap is that machine costs us anywhere from $125 to $150 an hour. John told us when we had that meeting on Compton Road, it would be wise if we used the water control district with their new machine to go down that ditch and hedge it the best they could, and their machine will cut up to 4-inch limbs without any trouble at all. But for them to go through with their machine to cut down the cost that he would charge the town to finish the job. So, and he even agreed that from one section to another section that borders his property, which is probably anywhere from 500 to 600 feet long, that he would do that as a demo. He would do it for free, just a demo to the town, what his machine's capable of doing. So the hedging problem, we don't have to go out to bid for that, that can be taken care of. All right, the only thing we could go out for is the drainage installation, and like I said, this could be a template for the town, for the future roads and stuff. We have to have a better game plan than what we've got in Loxahatchee, draining it off the side of the road on the people's property. So I'm personally willing to go out for a bid for the drainage. And we can decide whether we want to go with 10 on Compton Road or whether we want to go with 5. Because I'm sure the residents on Compton, if we went with 5, if we reduced it down because the cost was outrageous, then they would find some way to get their water from their property down to the other drain. So that's the only thing that I would go out, and it's like I said before, we've got 3 local contractors in Loxahatchee Groves. One has put the majority of basins and culverts in for Loxahatchee Water Control District, and that's George Perez. He's always bid the lowest, and basically I think he's always done the best job. He does an outstanding job, and I needed John to get reference on that. But we've got George, we've got John Choquette, and we've got another guy, Gary Davis, that are contractors, licensed contractors, that with these plans are important. With these plans, just the way they are, they could give us a sealed bid. I don't like nothing unless it's sealed, where all 3 contractors are in our town office and they open the sealed bid at the same time. But we could give these out to them tomorrow, and I don't know what the time limit would have to be, but we could get a bid quote within 1 to 2 weeks. Mike can help me out with that situation. But this garbage of going out for RFPs and costing this town a fortune, and even if it's an estimate, 200 and basically it comes to about $254,000 estimate. And we were talking 75 and 20,000. We were talking under $100,000 to do these 3 roads and possibly throw in the drainage as a benefit to the people, but as a template to this town. We take things that are simple, we cost the taxpayers a fortune when we need to move with this and we need to get it done. Now, I had one letter, I don't have it in front of me tonight, but Mark gave me a game plan that basically if we went out for bids, that at one point we'd be here and another point we'd be there, but the final result was that at the end of July, possibly the middle of August, we can have these roads done. Well, we only got a slight problem. That's in the peak of hurricane season. I've stressed that we've been dragging our feet long enough. This needs to be done before hurricane season, and there's no reason why we can't do it. I'll take a breath for a minute. The other thing, okay? Let's take it one thing at a time. Base rock installation, okay? We went out and met on this road, the Water Control District, me as a town representative, Mark, management, supervisor over the Water Control District. We agreed with Mass grading improvements on the side of the road. The Water Control District said they can take care of that. Our tax dollars pay for the graders that work in this town. The base rock installation, basically we got tons of base rock sitting in this yard out there. They can take care of that. The median part, basically we wanted to take it out because the residents said they've had a couple accidents and it is kind of dangerous to be in the middle of the road. So basically it would make the road safer. So we as a town, and we're already paying these people, we could take care of everything except the drainage, because that is more than we can put on the Water Control District. So that's where I stand on it. We need to vote on it tonight. We need to stay with the piggyback in Volusia County. We need to let the Ojum guy and the resurfacing guy do his job. He doesn't need to move dirt around and stuff. He needs to resurface the road, restore the road. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, Tom?
I would only echo another thing that I heard at the IGC committee, which was it is always best when doing a construction job to have all the work done by one party so that there is no question as to where the fault lies. And if we're going to cut it up in 3 or 4 different pieces, then I'm sure everybody will be sure that it'll never be anybody's fault whatever's wrong. And, you know, obviously, these guys don't understand anything. Okay, they don't do it for a living. So, I don't get it, but this really is an anti-professionalism and a desire to just do it ourselves. We honestly don't need a town management company or these guys or anybody, because Ron can just do it, he already has the guys.
I appreciate it if you wouldn't run them down. I said they've done an outstanding job, so that's rude for you to run them down.
I'm merely saying what you said, which is, you know, you talk to somebody who's done it for a living, as if they hadn't. I just want to make a point that they do. And there happen to be our professionals, and if I were them, I'd be sitting here wondering what the heck I got myself into. But, please, let's just go ahead and call the vote.
All right. Someone want to make a motion?
I did.
You did?
How about a comment? All right, yeah, we got a motion and a second, right? John Ryan? And, yeah, John Ryan's the only one I got.
In long way to John Ryan, the motion was to proceed with resurfacing of those three roads with the piggyback contract.
That's the only part.
That's the only thing in the motion. The rest of it was, commented was, anything else we have to do, we'll then handle separately, they don't have to all be done at once. And I think Ron filled in much of the blanks relative to that.
Okay.
John Ryan, 3508 A Road. At least 2, maybe 3 meetings ago, when I thought you guys were ready to proceed, there was one caveat, and that was essentially Tom's concern with regard to doing some drainage before we spend money on resurfacing the road. At that point, we arranged this group meeting where we had Steve, Mike, myself, Mark, Dave Damaris, I believe, at different points, and somebody from Casparis, I can't remember exactly who. But we walked common. We said, okay, the ditch on the north side has got vegetation, it's got light to medium woody material, and it's got some heavy woody material. The district had some experience using our new heavier duty tractor and hydraulic arm mower, where we did some pretty heavy hedging, which indicated to us what we could do and what we couldn't do. We said that, and I'm just recalling this, about 2/3 going from east to west on the main drainage ditch for Compton Road. The district could do that with its hydraulic arm mower. The heavier portion, John Choquette did a sample of much of the real heavy work with his new machine. He did that for free. I believe he said he would even do some more. But in addition, we looked at the desirability of improving the slope alongside the road on both sides. And we looked at low spot drain locations where we even said, look, at that point, we can, before the road is resurfaced, we could dig, basically a 1 bucket wide trench and put in a gravity feed pipe that would go from the south side to the lower ditch on the north side. So we said, we could even do that. And the district said with regard to the new culvert that we'll do that again as a associated road drainage repair under our contract with the town for $50 an hour, which was pretty much our loading cost for a piece of equipment and an operator. As Ron mentioned, we worked constructively with, no pun intended, Casparis with regard to what they wanted to see in addition to our standard culvert work drawing for the district. I believe we put that in. Between the bank preparation, the installation of the pipe, and the riprap, or the material to prevent erosion, the cost is round numbers, $2,500 to date, and some minor amount of additional work associated with the road itself. The point of all this is, the town council thought it was important to address reasonable drainage. When we went out there, we also looked at the islands. And, you know, the district, I think the district would have to, and I only saw briefly the construction drawings that were prepared as objectives by Cashberix today. The district would have to look at those, the board would have to look at the scope of work that was outlined on the drawings. And after our meeting on the 15th, get back to the town with what we felt we could responsibly do for $50 an hour, which would not be up to all the details in the drawings. But for example, on the islands, we could use our equipment to pull out any trees. We could use our bucket to dig about a foot down, and we could put in riprap or other fill, and we could put a patch on the top of it and let the resurfacing contractor under their piggyback work with Lewis County do the balance. And that's basically workable repairs, not up to the standards that are in the drawings, but it provides some drainage, it improves the water flow in the north ditch. And if y'all go out separately for drains, you know, to go in from the south side to the north side, that's fine. But I think that what was concerning me when I read over the agenda item tonight was that Ron was saying, is talking about, well, you know, RFP, breaking it up, looking at additional costs, getting the job done to better specifications than just a basic repair job. But, you know, it might take well into the rainy season, and that's going to really mess things up. So I think that after the district board meeting on 15th, we'd like to feedback some information to the town, let the engineer review it and comment on it. And I think that's what the engineering firm is really, their role is right at this point in time. They're advising the town, look, if you want to do this right, these are specifications, these are the kind of work that really gives you a long life repair and resurfacing. But if we're basically looking at taking the roads that exist and making some improved drainage and some improved resurfacing as a maintenance item rather than as a rebuild or major repair item, I think what we feed back to the town management and letting Cashberix review and comment on, and the board would have to approve because we'd be doing it not to the specifications in detail. And, you know, you have to look at that and understand that that's what we could do with a notice to proceed quickly and get in shape to have the resurfacing done, hopefully before we get into the public rainy season.
Thank you, John. All right, we have no other public comments. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Okay. Passes 4 to 1. One of the things, and I'll make a comment before we go on. I look at this as a maintenance thing. At the same time, this town council has had more problems with those 3 roads that are Ocean than any of our dirt roads because we don't have the ability to do something with them. The people on Tripp Road use a different product. They put some palings down. You all know Don Brovey. He said it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I think if we're looking at the other roads, we need to maybe consider something else that's already been used on these. It's a maintenance thing. Guys, as far as I'm concerned, it's the last time. If it fails again, I'm for turning it back to dirt. But anyway, just my thought. So anyway, passes 4 to 1. What's that? Let's take a quick break. Yeah, we'll come back.
Just want to say hello.
Scary.
Oh, yeah, no Today's my first day. Found a hole over in the rock system.
A whole hell of a lot.
Let me go. Come back. I can't touch it or research it. And I was told from all information. I can have an office, I can research, teaching, or administration. So I said, I want to be reassigned to some particular area. The administration over to the casino to take off. They got my
Have a bigger meeting. We need help. What's going on?
Right?
Good luck, good luck.
So how's Ron doing?
Ron's still good. How do you think he did?
Everybody in their seats. Everybody want to call it right now?
Like in the Navy, smoking that.
Right. Good luck.
Yes. We're at Acme. You'll know that fire your P-54 sight on the aromatic receptors.
All right, we've got a couple more items that Rob wants to make questions on this. We're still on 9. All right, can we get the, okay, let's put this down. All right.
I kind of want to stay on this subject, but I'd like to make a motion that we direct Mark to do a notice to proceed, work order notice to proceed with the Water Control District to do the edging on the north side of Compton Road.
Second motion.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion by council? All in favor?
Wait a second, is it covered by the contract?
Just, okay, this would, relative to the direction, what we have done in the past is we've made the determination that if it was drainage impacting the roadway, then the district could do it in the road repairs. That's the determination the council is looking for me to make. In order to do that, then I think we can probably procure it. If not, it's just a straight, because we decided we want to put up a ditch, I don't know.
Well, isn't it related to the work that we're doing around the road, right? It's in lieu of the formal drainage.
Right.
It's how you're going to address the drainage as part of this road repair. And that's what seemed to fall within.
I believe that's what.
Yeah, I don't think
What
we're
you
doing
just said there.
We're going to have to make it look nice. I think it's all drainage related, right?
It's the drainage related
So
to
would you
repairing
make
the
a
road.
motion accordingly that it's drainage related to Councilman Gerald and also,
Oh, yes.
Due to the
and I'll second that.
Yes,
It's also island repair, you know, because we'd be dealing with the islands too.
Well, I think that would be covered underneath the road contract that we have with you. Mark can verify that, but I don't think we have a problem. We could have had a problem with the edging if we didn't specify, make a motion that we do a work notice to proceed to do the drainage ditch, edge the drainage ditch due to the maintaining the drainage for the road repair.
Is it just, I'm sorry, just the one road or is it the only road that needs it?
Well, I think Compton is the only road that needs it, but I think it's the only one that's got it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second by Jim. Further discussion by council? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 3-2. My concern, and I think one of the things we're going to have to discuss someday, is one thing as far as maintenance to the roads. We collect gas tax. I think we're going to have to carefully talk about drainage along with these, because we've got town roads that have no drainage. We've got town roads that it's very inadequate, and I think we've got to be very careful by setting a precedent that we would, so I think in the future we'll have to do that, but it passes 3-2.
Just an important clarification, under the gas tax, drainage associated with the roads is a covered item. It's permitted.
Okay. All right, well, and that's great as long as we get gas tax money.
Yeah, it's still the mandate
Yeah.
that we're, you know, as Ron said, this is the template. Everybody in town should expect this.
Yeah. Okay. All right, what else, Ron?
I'd like to make a motion that, and the Mike's gonna have to help me here, and if we can even do it. I'd like to make a motion that we go out for bid, or we get a quote. I prefer we get a quote instead of doing an RFP from 3 licensed contractors in the town of Loxahatchee Groves to do the drainage according to the engineering plans that we paid $5,000 or $6,000 for or more.
Would they stay under the limit where we can just, management can make that call?
I don't know what the cost estimate is for just doing the drainage, and also, I am not an engineer or project manager. Can the drainage be done, in conjunction with, or even after the resurfacing, or the drainage has to be done before you do? Because if you do this drainage, I know it sounds like a stupid question, but remember, the time it'll take to do that and come back is gonna, we can do that, but it will delay the start of the resurfacing and do the drainage that was designed. I don't know if we can break that down to separate costs. I don't know where they would fall in. If it has to go through formal bidding, it would take the time to prepare the bids and to get responses, and review them and to award them.
I guess the question I had with Ron is, I second the motion, but the question would be, my question was, if we go out, if Mark asks for bids from those 3 parties with the condition it has to be under that amount, Well, let me finish my wrong question, and then you can straighten me out. If we can go, if we can, in a procurement policy, we have a certain cutoff level that says you don't have to go off bid. And if you was to propose, by selecting our local 3 contractors, say, I need a bid for this particular item, and it can't be over 25,000, and I would add to that sentence, and it doesn't mean it's 24,995. I don't know if we can do that, but if we can, it would make it simpler to do that.
I think the number for a quote is 115. All right, 25.
Ben,
Okay.
Procurement policy is 25,000, and I wouldn't, I don't have any idea how much it would cost, but looking at the size of the pipe and stuff, and whether we can reduce it, we got a quote of 10 drains, and we only wanted to reduce it down to 5. But the one thing we can, I know that we do not have to go through the bid process if we can justify by not going through it. That means that it's more, if we can save money, if time is a priority. We've got a number of things here that we can justify not going out for RFP and spending extra $4,000 to $6,000 and the time that it takes to do an RFP. We as a council can say that we've got the 3 contractors. We like to support our local contractors. They've proven themselves to be the most economical, not the cheapest, because they do an outstanding job. They work well with the town and the water control district. I believe us as a council, we can justify because of the time frame, because of the necessity and all that stuff, that we can just get 3 quotes. And whether we accept those 3 quotes, it's up to the council. If I know that I'm going to save the taxpayers money and the quotes come in fair and we can get this job done and use it as a template for future references, then I want to do it. And like Mike was trying to say, the hedging, my goal is to do it before hurricane season gets here. When the rains come, the road is going to get worse. The conditions are going to get to where you may not be able to resurface the road. I want that done before hurricane season. June starts hurricane season. Now, I believe if we went out for quotes, that we could do it a time frame that would be quick. We could mandate it that it would go out. I know they could probably call these 3 people tomorrow. So the opportunity is here for us to do it and do it right. And that's what I'd like to do.
Okay, Mark.
Your Honor, just as Vice Mayor was making his comments, and I'm looking, I have the actual engineer's opinion of probable costs. If you're talking all 3 roadways, the cost for drainage is going to well exceed the 25,000. I don't think close is a possibility. We have to know for a bit.
well, maybe this is part of the roadway, that's the Cadillac version. We're dealing with Volkswagen. From the standpoint of Bryan Road, I don't know that there's a lot of drainage work that needs to be done on that road. The road is the road, the problem is the road.
I'm just telling you, I have a public document here that's telling me cost right now.
Public
I don't know how they
document
work.
from our engineering organization.
Yes.
Okay, that's a public document, but it's also, to me, a Cadillac.
All right, Ron.
A comment on the public document. We got a public document that says it'll cost us $300,000 to go from Collecting Canal to Southern Boulevard to Ojum that road. Okay, we just Ojum F Road from Collecting Canal to Southern Boulevard. We put a sidewalk in to a certain distance. We did turning lanes and all that stuff, and it cost us $106,000. Okay, we had an allotment of $136,000. We came in under cost. So I'm just saying, I don't like the quotes we're getting. I don't like the quotes on Collecting Canal for being $1 million or $900 and something thousand. So that's beside the point.
All right, we're still back to, where are we at on this?
Well, Your Honor, you have a motion to direct us to try to, to procure the drainage aspects of these plans. The motion was to see if we could do the 3 solicited bids, but if it's going to come in over 25,000, then you've got to go through the repetitive bid selection process. Now, you do have the exceptions like that you're using, for example, for piggybacking. I don't know that we have anybody we can piggyback for this work. Also, you do have the exception to the best interest of the town that requires a court to show to the council with specific findings about what that interest is for not going through the procurement process.
Now, this, what if we did this drainage with the water control board by the hour? I mean, water control board puts culverts in, how hard is it to put an 8-inch pipe across that road?
Again, I mean, I guess if it's covered by the contract that we have, then it was just a notice to proceed. If it's a different project, then the fact that we might get it from that source from another source, it still would be a cost to the town. If the estimate is coming back at less than $25,000 for that work, then it's a matter of getting the competitive written quotes, and they come back and saying, here they are, pick one. You still have to get competitive written quotes if it's under 25. You just don't have to go through a formal bid process.
Okay, Tom?
You know, it seems like all we're trying to do is knock down every rule we made for any sort of procurement. Just do it, like I said, we just pick whoever you want, just have to go do it. And I honestly don't even know what we're doing, because we're not gonna do 10, we're gonna do 5, we're gonna do 6 or 7. I don't know whose house we're deciding. I know that one guy that comes here and rages on me all the time. I sure hope we put one by his house. You know, so what are we going to decide? That's my point. These guys did decide. But now we're changing it all around to some whole new thing. And then when it isn't something, I don't even know what it is we're buying, what it is we're getting, or who's doing it, whatever. But, you know, this is worse than River Ranch, the way this is handled. This is a town. We're supposed to do things according to rules and regulations. We made a set of procurements, and all we're sitting here for the last hour trying to figure out how the procurement rules that we have aren't any good. Well, the answer is, he just said it, 4 of you all say that you don't care, and go ahead. I'm not going to. I don't think this is right. I think, and I've said it before about the pavement act, we shouldn't have done it in the first place, because that's a done deal and we water under the bridge. But the fact that we've got to jump and figure it out, and Angel's got to dance on the head of him for us to figure out who's going to do what where. Tell me something. Go, Richard.
Ron?
Well, first of all, we haven't made it, I think we're discussing it, and I was gonna ask Mike, if we go out for an RFP, okay, to suit Tom and to suit our rules and regulations? No, hey, would you not interrupt me, Tom?
The Inspector General was here.
If we went out for an RFP, can you give us an estimated time of a month, 2 months?
You know, I don't do that.
Can we?
Mark does, but I would tell you that I can't tell you right now that I know that the plans that we were given, we can just turn around and say, you parcel out these things and bid on. So the first step is to get that bid package together. The second thing is Mark going to have the final authority on that bid package, or does it need to come back to you all or the FAAC to make sure that that's what we're bidding the right component, 8, 5, 10, those kind of things. That affects timing. Once you get it out, then I think you can deal with an abbreviated time frame so long as the notice properly, like 2 weeks, whatever. It's not that complicated to itemize it. You're talking about low bid, you're not talking about an RFP or RFQ. So you're just, when you get it, you're just talking about receiving it, quantifying it, and bringing it to you. But I think I would think we're looking at 30 days, right? I mean, at least. Right. So if we're fortunate, probably the second meeting in May to award it for drainage. If we're fortunate, I think that would be what, the 20th, give or take. So, you know, I think that's the time frame. I mean, we and I'm not sure how that would have, once you warn on the 20th, when they can start, and how long it takes to do that work, I don't know that. And how that can be coordinated with North Florida, who's doing just the resurfacing. I'm sure it can be coordinated, but North Florida would not be able to start until that was done, because I would assume, but I don't do critical paths, so I don't know what to do parallel and what has to be finished before you start. Okay.
I'm in agreement with Tom. I'm leaving Mark can handle it as far as if we went out for RFPs, because basically Tom would like to do what the engineers have recommended, and they said tonight they've already got the plans done, so that would make it easier for Mark. I don't see why Mark would have to come back to the council and in other words, you come back to what they recommended, we have a cost, and we as a council, we decide whether we want to do it at that cost, or whether we want to leave it alone until we get more money in the reserve. So, how can I make a motion to go along that process? Turn it over to Mark as far as going out for an RFP for the drainage. Because whether we do the drainage or not, we can't have the road resurfaced. We've got to do the hedging and stuff, so we're talking, here it is, the 1st of April. We're talking that we could possibly have an RFP done and awarded no later than the end of May, possibly, or the middle of May. Okay, but the main thing is just trying to get the resurface done in June. I think by the end of April, you could have the RFP taken care of.
Two things, as long as I'll try to minimize costs. If I have the engineers assist me, we can probably turn it around very quickly. And just for the record, in terms of the motion, that you're really talking an ITB and not a.
I was just gonna say, you're just having us go through the procurement process. It sounds like an ITB, you don't need an RFP if we determine the ITB.
That's easier.
Yeah, and the bid's better than the.
Because it's a quantifying total cost, it's a line item bid.
One question relative to having this sent out for RFP because the cost was high. What was the proposed cost for Bryan Road, for drainage? Since my perspective is there's none needed.
He said there wasn't much on Bryan Road. He said
I didn't hear, I don't remember the number.
He said no piping.
There's, looks like we have an item for shoulder swale grading, 6,000. We have some sod, 5,000, that'd be about it, yeah, you're right, that's about the cheapest one out of the three.
Well, how much was it?
Roughly around 13,000.
There was no like that.
You're talking about bidding the piping work, right?
We're just talking piping, right, the drainage?
Yeah.
The drainage,
On that, he was talking about reshaping the swales was the only drainage improvements.
which we want to do with that. What I'm putting in motion is for the roads that require the piping, that's what we're bidding on, which is.
As a contrast to like, the Compton, you'd be looking at in-yard drains, drain basins, PVC pipe, sod, along the line items.
On Marcella too, or just go?
Marcel is very similar, yeah. Not as much, but very similar.
My point was, if we resurface Bryan, I don't believe you need to do anything with the drainage at this point. Compton, we have a new drain going in, that's gonna take care, in my mind, the problem with flooding. The movement of water across drainage ditches that are blocked or tree growing and things of that nature. I would see us go through Compton, have that cut back because we direct water control district to do that. And we assess what we have yet to do after that. I mean, if we could do 5 drainage culverts, that would be sufficient. Then we do that. Compton's the only one that really seemed to have a severe flooding problem. And again, we put in a new relief valve for that, which is out to Effort. So Marcella, I don't know if the extent of the drainage problem is anything like Compton, or even it's not as bad as very little. So my thinking is that we just get this, we focus on getting the resurfacing done as we proposed, and we have some of the other work done by the water control district to slope some of these drains and do whatever they can with the contracts we have in existence, and then let's reassess what's left. If we have to put some culverts in, then we may see that you only have to do $15,000, and we'll just have our local guys that will go out to and say, I need bids for you to do this work.
The only caution I want to make to council is that I spoke with Mr. Yohe, I'm not speaking for him, but he is concerned with any major scope of work. That's why he's taking it to his board on the 14th, because he has some pending items with USDA and a number of things, and he's concerned about if he gets big assignments to do on the road. I'm not saying he can't do them, I'm just saying so much he rely totally on the district, because he has to talk to his board, he has to have some issues to work with.
See, I don't accept the cost estimate for the drainage work on those 3 roads as to be even in that ballpark. Because we have something for Brian, and I think Brian needs it. You make it back and find a couple areas we can re-slope or drain a little bit deeper, but I've not heard anything from people on Brian. So, man, you gotta fix this drainage, here, here, and here. It's, you gotta fix this road.
Right, Tom?
I would think that the engineers went out there and looked at it like you would look at it if you went there to do the job right. They gave us an estimate of what they thought that was. Now, in my estimation in life, when I've done projects for people and I give them the price to do it right, they often want an alternative price to do it a little different. And I think that's what we do. So long as we understand that, that's fine. The engineer said that he thought there's some sloping that needed to be done on Bryant. If we don't want to do that, that's fine. But I do think that if we're going to put culverts from the south side to the north side that have to go under the road, and they're not going to somehow put them there without digging the road back up, then we ought to put them in first. I mean, just, but that's just a thought, I don't know. But it would seem that we should do that first, and why? When this whole thing first came up, I said maybe we want to do the drainage before we do the road. If we want to get the road done before we get the drainage in, just to prove a point, well, please do. Because you're going to have all these little cuts where we've done. Okay.
Ron?
I agree with Jim. I think we need to go out for ITB, but only on Thompson Road. We've never had Marcella or Brian's Road come to this council and complain about drainage. And I understand where Tom's coming from with the engineers. They did their job, but we've never had any complaints. We've had complaints from Tom, we've had complaints from management that we need drainage on Thompson Road. So if we do an ITB, that's going to be quick. We've got to get the hedging done. That involves two people, the Water Control District and John Choquette. So we're going to have things working. We can't bring the Ojim guy in right away. But I believe the estimate was that when he comes in to do those three roads, it would take 1 to 2 weeks to do all three roads. Now that still puts us ahead of hurricane season. So I would like for us to go ahead and do ITB on Thompson Road only, and do it just like the engineer spec. And it would be up to us whether we wanted to go along with it after we come up with the cost. And Thompson Road will be our template. We've got to have a template of proper engineered draining in Loxahatchee roads and get away from no drainage at all. So how do I reword that?
Well, your motion was on the table, so you're amending it to only do Compton Road per engineering plan.
ITB for Compton Road.
Okay, Tom seconds that. So we have an amended motion in a second.
Right, and it's to do an ITB for the drainage as designed, just the drainage piping culverts, not the swales and the
Right,
mansard.
just a pipe.
For Compton Road only.
Right. Okay, further discussion by council. Okay, Keith Harris,
I would like to add one thing. If we're going to do that, we ought to add, just to have a quote, what that price would be to do a little bit of soil by the hour, just in case we want to do something. And we'll have the ability to do it. We don't have to do it.
all right, Keith,
Yes, Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Gentlemen, I heard in your discussions that there are 3 local contractors that can go do this work. There are more than 3 contractors in this town. Will the others be allowed to be considered as well? And if it is, it needs to go out to bid.
thanks, Keith. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Ron, you gonna do anything with Tom's suggestion? Or are we gonna leave it as it is?
I know I have confidence in the Water Control District as far as doing anything that has to do with the swell, that's in junction with the roads. I believe that, and like somebody made the comment, well, they're busy with this and that, but the truth of the matter is there's 4 roads that they don't grade anymore. And if we don't find something for them to grade on our town roads, pretty soon they're gonna be out of the job and they're gonna want to get rid of the grader. we'll pay more than $50 an hour and have the roads graded.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, moving to item 4. Kelly, come on up. It's been a long way to get to item 4, sorry about that.
Just make it in the
Hi,
next
good
one.
evening, everybody. I'm here to present a possible T3. This is a public-private partnership with the town, hopefully, for maybe some land allocation for recycling, and to address his concerns with water quality, the manure issues. We would like to be your solution for that. And it's a green process, it's closed-looped. Dr. Lalla is here to speak in regards, and Ernie Leffler is here as well. I'm also partnered with Justin Hickey, the largest hauler. I have slides to show you of some of the pollution that was very easy to find on Google Earth, and I chose to keep those photos because no one can say, well, where did they come from, or who took these. And then driving home the other day, actually on Sunday, from the horse show, I was pretty shocked because I took a new way home that Michelle had told me, and on North Lakes Boulevard, I stopped and there was manure piled 4.5, 5 feet, 6 feet high. And I have all the pictures of that and the address and everything, and it was just right there by the road for you to see.
And what road was that along?
North Lakes Boulevard.
No.
No, but I mean, it's getting worse. It's going out further and further, and there's just more and more pollution, so.
There's a farmer over on North Lake with about 40 acres, but I know where you're talking about.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
And it's nice to know that they have.
But all this is in Loxahatchee. All these pictures are from Loxahatchee.
Hold on a second, Tom.
Could I touch on something that you started out with? You were looking for a P3. Could you explain that? I'm not familiar with the term, and I'd like to explain it.
Private-public partnership.
Yes, what does that mean? You do define that?
When you engage in business with a city or a town. And we're not looking for any funding from you. However, I have been speaking to some of the senators' offices and also to Representative Packers, and they are looking into funding. They would allocate those funds to the city, though, and then that would be to be distributed for my project or however you deemed to use it. So they are looking into that. But what we mostly were looking at is a nice location so that we can take care of this for you. Not only can we do the current problem, but we can also restore the material that's been, the areas that have been dumped on. We have a process that will work to restore that as well and reclaim all that material and clean up the pollution. And I know that everybody always thinks that there's a conflict of interest. I'm awarded a patent, so there really is no conflict of interest because no one else can do what I'm doing. So I've been granted a patent, it's a utility patent, it's good through 2031, and also have all the registered marks that are associated with this project.
One other question relative to the definition of partnership. That means you're located in Loxahatchee Groves.
If you would, if
With the
it's,
partnership part
yes.
of that, it's understanding
Yes.
you're located in Loxahatchee Groves.
All right, continue.
Okay. Any questions? These are the slides of the pollution. It's quite extreme. There was State Road and Okeechobee Boulevard, and the next photos that are coming up are from Loxahatchee Groves. And then there's one on the next page that she'll go to next after this that is, it's across from Pierce Hammock Elementary School. And I showed pictures when I was sent the pollution pictures.
Kelly, now, you said Pierce Hammock Elementary School. When you say Loxahatchee, I think you're talking about the acreage now. In other words, we're considered Loxahatchee
Okay,
Groves,
so
and
that's
we're just one small square area.
one small square
But
area.
we do have that problem in Loxahatchee. That's how
Okay.
you're referring to.
I'm actually like trying to refer to all of it. It's all a problem, and we just came to you all to to ask if you had any land to be allocated, if that would be of interest to you. We would like to be a solution and really like to help. Justin has been, he is permitted and he tries to do his best. He does all of it legally, and it's very hard when there's been a lot of it that hasn't been done properly, and that's really not fair business practice. It's competition against him in an unfair manner, and we just want to come in and help clean up the area, not just haul it, but we want to clean it up and produce products that can be reused and recycled, and it's a green process. It's environmentally friendly.
Okay. I think it's somewhat premature because I don't think that at least we don't have any land. So I don't have a piece of
But
land.
I think right now, we're listening to her presentation. I mean, I'm not looking to make any decisions tonight at all. But anyway, so what else? Continue. Is that all you got? Or is that?
That's pretty much what I have to say.
Okay.
If you'd like to see, would you like to see the process? Would you like to know about the process?
A little bit about it would be
Yeah.
interesting, yes.
It's a separation of the manure and the shavings. The shavings are reclaimed and recleaned. They're cleaned so that they can be reused again in a safe process.
Let me interrupt you,
Okay.
if that's okay with council.
Sure.
Describe the process like you're in the middle of Loxahatchee Groves, and you're 20 acres, is that what you suggested, something you needed, 10 or?
10 acres. We would
You're
need
in
more.
10 acres, and you're surrounded by land, let's say 5-acre properties, and everybody that lives on those lands is raising their children, for example. Some of them maybe have the equestrian in nature, but if you would present your proposal with that in mind, you're in the middle of an area that people live.
We really don't want to be right in the middle of where people live.
And that's what our town is.
There's no properties at all here without having anything
You're
but
not
where
doing
people.
something like that, that's not in a residential area, but
I would once again, Southern is not a dumping ground.
We are a rural, 5-acre, 10-acre all through Loxahatchee Groves.
But all the areas like where some of the illegal dumping sites, what are they? That's in the middle of.
They're illegal dumping.
They're
That's why
illegal.
we're trying to clean
Why
it up.
couldn't we have like an area like that to take and clean up and,
Well, that's, you know,
I think this.
right, but you want the water cleaned as well, so who's going to clean the water?
To be fair to you, you're not asking to come in and create another area that's a dumping ground.
No,
You're specifically addressing from photos. Some areas, whether they were all ours or not, but some areas that we must have some of them. I know
yeah, we do.
I know.
You know,
And one of the things you'd be able to do is help us clean up that area.
correct.
The location is difficult. First of all, Tom mentioned, we have no land to give you, or even lease it to you at $1 a year kind of thing. Although we have a quarter acre somewhere that wouldn't even help you. So I'm not sure how the land, if you had funding, land might be procured, and then we would have to find some kind of, but the reason I asked the question before about framing your discussion, presentation, if you're in amongst homes and you're presenting, you're going through your process, I'm concerned about, there's got to be an odor.
There is no odor.
No odor.
No, it's a closed loop system, everything.
I mean, I read through what you had, and I know what I read, but I'm kind of like, all right, I'm gonna sit with, in April in my home, and I'm next to your 10 acres, and I get the windows open because it's a beautiful night, and I just cleared up my sinus infection, or I don't have a problem. So that's kind of odd for you to understand.
How is it now? And how beneficial is it now with all the places?
Well, I'm just saying, if you were to come in
And who's going to
demonstrate your.
No, I understand, but who's
It's hard
going
to
to clean up,
imagine it.
who's going to clean up all those places? How's that going to get, they're not cleaning it up though.
but as we identify, that's something that we're going to have to deal with. We're just trying to stop the problem right now.
What about if one of the landowners wanted their property cleaned up and they wanted to allocate the properties to be used for those?
It's industrial.
It's an it's actually an agricultural process for the DEP when we met with them. It flies under ag, all of them.
I would say that it's unpopular, whatever you're proposing.
Right, okay.
I mean, for what good that is to you, I don't see it going over with a lot of public support, just to life. And maybe you have some sort of an educational process to go through. Maybe if you had a site, it would be better, because right now everyone's imagining it next to their house. So if you had a spot where you can say, no, look here, there's a mitigating circumstance, it is here, it is there. But, there's a lot of things I think you really need to concern yourself with. One, we're very concerned with trucks coming through the town and cut through traffic. So much as I hate Southern Boulevard as a location, it's the only feasible spot. Property is more expensive there. I don't know if you want to compete with a bank or a gas station when you're trying to buy 10 acres of land. I don't know economically if it's going to work for you. But you've got to take these things into account. We don't allow chipping. We don't allow loud noises. We don't want our water being used for, if you're going to recycle water, you're going to use some. You're going to take it out of the aquifer because we don't have a water line for you to pull it from, except on Southern Boulevard. So once again, that, at least my thoughts, if you had a specific spot, I'd be willing to talk about it. But pie in the sky maybes, I don't like that, not only you, but other people come to the council and say, where can I do this, where can I do that? This isn't Russia. This is economics for y'all to decide. You come to us and look for your zoning and your spot. Don't look for government to solve a problem that really, our problem is this much of it, and there's a room this big coming from someplace else. I don't think we don't feel the moral obligation to solve their problem. We're trying to stop what they're doing to us right now, which is dump their problem on us. So, those are my constructive ideas, but, honestly, I see a lot of people really giving me the eye, like, there's no way this can be in our town.
And a P3 could also make you money. You could also turn this and make it into a city that
This
makes
is the
money.
man who wants money, so maybe we can have.
And I know because when I called and said that, and it really could. I mean,
I'm not
that's how
I'm not
the
disagreeing.
parking meters, if I can finish, that's how the parking meters are aligned with Chicago. That it's a P3. Makes the city money, but I was told that this city didn't need any more money. So I guess maybe that is the case.
All it depends on how much we're
Not
spending.
according to our fact committee. We need more money. But hey, anybody else wants to?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I personally was glad that you came tonight. You told us you had a patent, okay, so that tells me that you're ahead of the ballgame. Wellington has spent over $100,000, probably between $100,000 and $200,000 researching this situation to try and solve the problem for the western communities. But their main concern, besides solving the problem, is how much money they can make off of it by recycling it. Okay, Justin, for a long time, he's got a place in Belzane where he does this, and I believe it's on 5 acres, I'm not sure.
I take it all to U.S. Sugar.
Okay,
They use it for fertilizer.
But at one time, I was told that basically it could be done on 5 acres, and that you couldn't smell it or anything. Now I've looked at your thing here, I'm not a doubting Thomas. I believe it's concealed, I believe that it wouldn't smell, and the contamination, I look at this and I believe it would work, okay? Some of the questions I had for you was one, how much land you needed, you said 10 acres, okay, it couldn't be done on 5.
Not with the amount.
Right, but no, hey, I look at 10 acres, first of all, if it's on 10 acres and it's done in the center, then that keeps it that much farther away from the residents. Now, throughout Wasatchie Grove, we've got farmland, we've got 40-acre farmland, we've got 60-acre farmlands, we've got 200-something acres in farmlands, but Wasatchie is unique, except to the acres where the roads and stuff were, where they had large amounts of lands. Okay, Tom's right, I do like for this town to make money, okay? The other question was, and I've been told by a lot of people that believe they can make this work, that the town could get a tippage off this. Now legally, I don't know, Mike let the see. But I would look for something like a tippage for every cubic feet that you sent out, or every 2 cubic foot bag that you sent out, we would get a tippage off that. If you sold it, you understand what I'm
I
saying?
know exactly what
Okay,
you're talking
that,
about.
that would bring in revenue,
Correct.
that would be unbelievable, because that is a
Correct.
major problem in the western communities. Okay, I'm not the type of person, I'm not into pawning. You know, I know Wellington's working on it. Wellington was working on the state college, okay? They blew that deal, and now we've got the state college, and I think it's gonna be an asset to Loxahatchee Groves. So I look at something like this, and if we can honestly solve a problem where we can control this, make money off of it at the same time, I personally think it would be a very wise decision. And we do have the property out here, and the other thing would be the residents surrounding. I believe that you could find 10 acres where somebody would. The guest property is 217 acres right off Southern Boulevard. They've been approached about this, but basically when they were approached, they weren't approached by someone with a patent, someone that already had the system established and stuff like that. Now the other question is, if something like this happened, how long would it take you to build it and get it processed?
It would depend on the improvements on the land. If it's raw land, it would take 6 to 9 months. If it was improved land, it would probably take between 4 to 6 months. The leeway for the equipment is 4 months, 12 to 16 weeks. Dr. Lala has reviewed this, and Ernie Buffler came as well.
Let me, a couple more questions.
Okay.
Okay, now what kind of tax category would you fall in? Would it be a nonprofit, or would you be paying revenue to the town? What kind of tax?
That would have to be, we also qualify for carbon credits. There's carbon credits that can come with us.
Explain that to me, please.
That's a gray area in this country, so they're much more advanced in Europe, but we are looking into the carbon credits because we would be pulling off, because we're recycling the shavings, right? We're taking roads, our trucks off the roadways. Some of the shavings come in from as far as Canada, some from the Carolinas, some, yes, from locally, and some from Ocala, but it would be cutting down the carbon. So there'd be carbon credits. There's many different ways. There's the tipping fees, recycling the shavings, the organic compost.
Okay, but as far as the tax revenue without tippage fees and stuff, would you be paying taxes to the town? Okay. Okay, all right.
Well, or at least.
You don't have any land.
Well, first of all, we do have land, okay, but hey, okay, no, I'm asking some questions here. No, the town doesn't have 10 acres, okay, let me clarify that. But people in Loxahatchee, they do have 10 acres, but no, the town, and I wouldn't recommend that the town give you 10 acres, okay, that's being honest with you. There's people out there that, just like the people that sold the land to the college, they like to do things for just cause, and they are going to have to get paid for the land, but no, the town does not have. Okay, have you approached Wellington?
We have talked to Wellington as well. And I'm in I've had meetings with Commissioner Shelley Vanna, and we're talking to, like I said, some of the state representatives and stuff, because it seems that everybody wants to do something. You're very opposed to it. I understand that, but I'm trying to give a solution to something. There's a problem here. It's not going away. Your waterways are being affected. We have a solution to clean it up. That's all we're asking to do. We're not asking to create a bigger problem. We're trying to make a solution, a better way for the waterways, for everything. As much money that gets spent on the Everglades, like Okeechobee. There's lots of pharmaceuticals in the manure and in the waste, and that gets into water contamination. There's all kinds of stuff. You can look at the website and see a lot of it. And so,
Tom brought up a couple of good points. First of all, the big trucks coming in, and then you told us they could be coming from out of state, Canada, whatever. So that's something, but no,
that was in regards to, that's for shavings and what we would be eliminating as far as and why we would get carbon credits.
Okay, yeah, I got you. All right. And there would be no loud noises? That's another thing?
No.
Okay, all right. That's all the questions I have. Personally, I think that, if people solve problems, I think it's good for the community. I think it's good for everybody. And if you can make money when you solve problems, I like to learn about things, whether we accept it or whether that's beside the point, but to tell you that you know, you're here too early or we're not interested, I personally, I am interested, so thank you for coming.
Okay, so, thank you.
We got to get Brian, he has his hand up.
Right.
Your, your 10-acre site, how much do you project you will process? Like, are you looking to process solely all of the Wellington shavings and stuff, or a portion of it, or how much?
We're building to scale so that we can operate year round.
Okay.
So that it wouldn't be a seasonal, because if you built it to accommodate everybody in Wellington for season, then it would be too large, and it would be cost prohibitive, and then it would shut down. So we want to operate year round.
Okay, so basically, you're not looking to process all of that, you just,
No, because then we can separate it and store the shavings to be processed at a later time, and the composting would continue on because the shavings won't break down. And we plan in our plans, it's all to be held on impervious surfaces, so there's no groundwater contamination and leaching in the waterways.
Sure.
Tom, you want to go again, or? No, okay. Before I forget, I'm glad you came. I'm glad to hear about this. I'm glad to read about it.
Thank you.
You're gonna get pushback from the town because I think the perception is with anything like this, is we are now creating a great big pile of manure in the middle of Waxahachie Groves that wasn't there before. We have our own piles, and we have our own concerns of how we want to address them. This would be a partial help to that, I would think. But, so the perception is that's kind of what we see. So I would expect you'll get a lot of rejection from the idea without actually hearing it. My interest in it, it's kind of piqued because of what Ken Johnson had said earlier in our meeting, that we have a problem. We're taking it a step at a time. Actually, we did a giant step by closing the doors to incoming from outside the area. And now we have our own manure that we have to try to see how we can manage and worry about water quality, which we will do that too. So I'm looking at